Hello, welcome to the offshoot. I'm the host, Lee Sean Nelson. Today I have a special guest, Randall Chandler, a community activist, leader, and he's here to talk about the black community and changing the narrative when it comes to the black household and black marriages. Randall, welcome to the offshoot.
Uh, uh, Thank you so much, LaShawn. I'm not used to being on camera,
It's all good.
but I uh, would like to talk about the black family and how I got to the point where I became a stay-at-home dad, which for me, being raised, in the black church and in this society in general, which is a male-centric society, as men don't have to do anything with their kids; they just need to go out and make money, which is an odd sort of paradigm to put towards black people. At the same time, you're holding them back
Yeah.
from reaching that kind of goal where a black man has to struggle and may not make it to a job or profession because of obstacles in the society that will not allow him to be in that position where he is a single income earner,
Yeah.
which will allow his parent to his family to or his wife to stay home and work and take care of the kids and nurture them. Ironically, though, in the 50s, believe it or not, the black female married at a higher rate than white women.
But let's before we go there,
Okay.
let's take it back a few steps and talk about you as a black man and where you started out in terms of your home here in Washington D.C. and then meeting the woman that became your wife and how you all started the family and then how you all decided to not do the traditional thing in terms of the traditional black household, but create your own narrative. So first, let's start with you being born and raised here in D.C.
Okay. Well, I was born in basically what is Rosedale, but I lived my entire life in Northeast, some 6 years in Northwest, but mostly I lived in Northeast. I guess this is sort of upper Northeast,
Yeah.
near Rhode Island Avenue, and then I moved to this neighborhood where you and I are now neighbors, and what
So
happened is I was pretty much, like I said, raised in the church with the idea that, the man is the leader of the family and so forth
a
and
very
so forth.
traditional upbringing.
A very traditional upbringing. Even though I was ironically raised in a single parent white household, my mother still promoted that idea to all of her sons and so forth. And for me, I decided that I wanted to be when I got married, I wanted one family. I was going to have all of my kids under one roof with one female. And so fortunately, I found a young lady in my neighborhood who was sort of introduced to by a friend, lifetime friend, and we hit it off. When we, dated for about 6 years. We met in '83. We got married in 1989. We sort of, didn't have children immediately. We kind of postponed it a little bit.
Yeah, for your careers and what have
Yeah,
you.
and ironically, though, you just can't hit a switch and kids pop up. So they come when they come. So even though I am now 62, I have an 18-year-old and 19-year-old and a 28-year-old. And the good thing about that is that my 19-year-old will be a junior. She got a full scholarship to college. My son is just married. In fact, he's on his honeymoon, finishing up in Antigua.
Yeah.
Everything seemed to be working well. My wife is a government employee in the federal government, and our life is reasonably well.
But on the outside, it looks traditional. But what's different about your household is that at some point in your marriage, you became a stay-at-home dad. When did that come about, and how did you guys come to that?
Well, I had, worked various jobs all my life. One of them was on a career path. And then a latter job was not necessarily a quick career path job. And my wife knew that I had a lot of friction on that job for many years, in which she would ask me periodically to, quit the job and go work somewhere else.
Yeah.
So as it happened, we reached a point in which me and that job severed our relationship. And that was when my daughter was about 2 years old. And that's when my wife had broached the idea of me being a stay-at-home dad. Prior to that, my in-laws, actually, we had it very good. My in-laws would come over to the house and take the kids to school, allowing us to disperse in our various locations and go to work. And then we were even lucky enough to have, dinner ready sometime and the house clean. And that's the fortunate thing about having in-laws living only about a mile away. So in a way, even though we weren't domiciled in the same place, we had the extended generational family in a variant in that sense as well. And so, but they were getting older. So by that time, they were hitting 70 when my daughter was about 2. And so my wife broached that idea to me, and so they could, relax, and then I could, begin to take care of them, and, we would offset certain costs of child care, and we didn't really want our kids in child care. And so we made, of course, that's a sacrifice. You don't always get the new car and so forth and so on. But, overall, everything was fine.
So how did you, as a black man, break out of that narrative? I mean, your wife, I have to give her so much credit and foresight that she approached you about the idea. But too often, especially right now, you hear too often about the black man, the emasculation of black men, etc. And yet, long before we have that discourse going on right now regarding the black man and the black community, you were way ahead of your time and already had the mindset that, okay, all right, my wife approached the idea. She's a federal career employee. She's on a trajectory. You are also on a trajectory. But myself, who was once in corporate America, I know what it's like to deal with frictions in that kind of world, and where it's probably best just to go somewhere else. So, but what was going through your mind? How do you fight the traditional upbringing to stay on the path where you were the breadwinner and your wife was the one who was supposed to do the cooking and cleaning or raising the children?
Well, what's funny about that is even today I do have some friends that will sort of cite, the Bible as the foundation of how a family should be formed. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I also find myself in a unique position where I am married and have been married now since 1989. And so I kind of come from it with an experience that while that's an idea, we've done what we've made this work. And what happened is the foundation was actually began when I was when we were younger. Like I said, it was a single family household, number one. And because my father wasn't there, ironically, the kid, my older brother is actually 14 years older than me. So the child was at home, and he was like a sort of semi-father figure. Okay. But the child who are home, you are going to have to fill the roles that the parents leave behind. Yeah. And that's one thing men do not realize, that they push their kids into positions to be what they weren't. Yeah. And so I had my younger brothers. I had another brother just under me who was 1 year different than I. And he and I would have my 2 younger brothers. We would have to take care of them. He was more of a cooker, so he could cook. But my mother actually taught us how to cook, sew, take a light fixture and take out the guts and wire it so it will be
Yeah.
functional. So she spanned like the motherly duties
And the
and the
fatherly duties.
fatherly duties.
Yeah.
So actually, she kind of prepped us very well. And so I always had my younger brother, like my wife would tell you, I would take my younger brother on dates with me.
Oh, really?
And her, yeah, he would come with us and join us on the dates and so forth. So, and it was no big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it could, I will say this. My mother did get used to me being at home and being one of the sons she could rely on.
Yeah.
And so it could cause a little friction when you get married and you begin your own family.
Yeah.
And which I had to set my mother and my wife's order and tell them, look, I love
Yeah.
both of y'all.
Yeah.
And this is how it's going to go.
Yeah.
You know, and it's, it can be a little bumpy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But in the end, you found within yourself to say, hey, you know what? Okay, all right, I'm going to go against what's traditional and we're going to form our own narrative.
Oh, yeah, it's hard to. And don't get me wrong. Sometimes, I'm not going to say I feel emasculated, but you do feel like, oh, man, I didn't do this role that is kind of like preached to you all the time.
Yeah.
And then you have, it's not hyper masculinity, but you have black men in search of a way to sort of feel like they're being a leader, and part of it is imbued with the masculinity.
Yeah.
But you can still, I learned this from my father-in-law as well.
Mm-hmm.
My father-in-law was he was very cool. You wouldn't see him, get upset and all like that. But if he did say something, assert himself, then you had to take him serious because he didn't do it all the time. So from watching that, I learned that, you got to, you pick whatever.
Yeah.
You pick the things that are really important.
Okay.
And but in truth, my wife also, she trusts me a whole lot because, and I found out the meaning of trust is promises kept. And because I kept promises, my wife, she doesn't care about the appliances when they go bad. She knows that I'm going to pick the right thing.
Yeah.
She's not bought one appliance in the house. She doesn't care. She trusts me. The only thing, like picking paint colors or something like that, she'll get involved. But overall, and I, so because I repurposed that energy, I just wasn't a stay-at-home dad. I was you
did other things.
I did other things. I got involved in the community, but I also was at the school. What it gave me, I was spending time with my kids more than anybody. Even before I lost my job, I had like great benefits at the job I had.
Yeah.
So I was going on all of the trips with the schools. I was able to plan my time around all the trips.
Yep.
And so it got to the point, my kids went to Montessori school on Capitol Hill and Langdon. And it got to the point where sometimes the parents would see me going on a trip and they wouldn't even be worried about going on the trip because they know I'm there. And can I tell you a real brief, benefit of going on the trip? It hurts my heart a little bit. We went to MoMA in New York.
Okay.
And with one of the parents brought her mother, who was from a war-torn country like that, Bosnia, Herzegovina, and all like that.
Eastern Europe.
And Eastern Europe, they come here as refugees. So we were on a trip going through the subway to get to MoMA, and her mother came with her. Mm-hmm. And her mother, fortunately, I was in the back watching, guarding all the kids. Her mother came and separated my daughter from her granddaughter, walked her granddaughter up to her other granddaughter and had them hold hands and thought they should be together after the teacher had, divided the kids up because I was at a school in Capitol Hill and they really were into diversity and stuff.
Yes.
So what she did was she brought her racism when we gave her a place of refuge. Yeah. She brought her racism with her and she separated my daughter. I almost went ballistic, but a black mother caught me by the hand, calmed me down, and I had my daughter, and she hooked the daughter up with either with my daughter or whatever. We were able to manage that. Yeah. And so that's the benefit. Thank God that I was a stay-at-home dad, and I was there to look out for my daughter.
Yeah.
So.
And that wasn't very long ago.
Well, my daughter she was a little child. Yeah. My daughter was probably...
Because she's 19 now.
She's 19, but yeah, that was at least when she was probably less than 6 years old or about 6 years old.
Yeah, so we're still talking the 2000s.
Yeah, so I was very fortunate that God worked this out for my family.
Yeah. So let me ask you this then. So with, again, what's going on, or what we hear about and read about in terms of this alpha male, uber masculinity thing that's going on out there, what do you think is missing from that conversation? What do you think that a lot of black men, or just men in general, are missing when it comes to what it really means to be a father figure or be the head of the household or what have you?
Well, what's really funny about this is my wife actually has never tried to diminish me as a man. So I'm very fortunate to have a good woman. Mm-hmm. And so, we could have little conflicts. And that's a good thing about also being in the home, a father and a mother. The kids see conflict resolution. And they learn from you. Mm-hmm. So, what happens is, I think what happens is because a lot of men aren't really in control, they overcompensate with the hyper machoism and all that, and like I said, believe it or not, I make most of a lot of decisions. Don't get me wrong, my wife makes all her own decisions, especially when she buys stuff. So, and we do talk and we consult about a lot of things. And then each of us have our own things in which we become entrenched and will not give on. And so, you have to compromise and so forth. But overall, it wasn't necessary to be hyper
uber masculine.
Uber masculine. Only one time I kind of snapped. My wife would laugh at this. Is when my son we were applying for schools. Yeah. And she did not apply for Banneker. Yeah. And I wanted my son to go to Banneker because I had looked and saw how many young ladies were there and how few men were there. Mm. And I just happened to ask my wife, like in passing, like, "Oh, so how's the Banneker application?" And she didn't apply, and I went off. I kind of went a little. I got a little upset. Yeah. But we, as a family, we got him in there. We got the process done, and he ended up in Banneker, so he graduated from there. So everything worked out. So overall, we just worked together.
Well, so let me ask you this question. So you mentioned, we talked earlier about the church and how you had a traditional upbringing, but we know that a lot of black men, young men, or black folks in general are not going to the church like they used to. So we really can't say that the church is pushing that narrative of a traditional family. I guess in some cases the church is, but so let's remove, I guess, the church from the narrative of what's going on today, because unless it's Easter Sunday for the most part, the church is not really full.
Right. So
if the church is not there, is that what's missing? That the church is not quite there like it used to be?
I won't say necessarily that that's missing. What happens is, I think what we have lost is shaming people seems like a bad thing, but it also helps a society have order. Okay. So what happened is people aren't ashamed anymore of, most of our mothers, if you think about it, mothers since the beginning of time have almost been teenage girls. It's only in this century or this previous century that we began to delay adulthood like we have.
Yes.
And so what happens is now men stepped up. I know in the latter century, and they would, do shotgun wedding or marry a young lady. Like I said, black women were married at a higher rate than white women in the 1950s. And so what happened is, considering today, with technology being prophylactics and stuff like that, men who don't want children should act like they don't want children instead of turning over their destiny for a hot minute to someone else and then get pissed with her when she decides she want to have a baby. You don't know how she feels inside when she becomes pregnant, even though she knows she selected poorly, probably.
Yeah.
So she was just looking for a good time too.
Yeah.
So you can't just
the
put
consequences of that relationship.
Yeah, you can't just put it all on the woman. If you, brother, know that it is a moment in which you are just having fun, act like you're having fun and be responsible. You know, you buy insurance for your car, you know, you put on a prophylactic.
Yeah.
So that's how I see it, or rubber. So this is my problem with black men not taking responsibility. Such a simple thing to do.
It is simple.
And then going to blame somebody else when they become a father. The function of sex, as we are mammals, it is to produce. And the reason we do sex is because it creates genetic diversity.
Yes.
Which makes us stronger each generation.
Yes.
That's natural selection, I think. And so you are responsible as a thinking person to wear a rubber. Do you have that good time? Because you probably wouldn't even do sex if it wasn't good. So you know you're doing it for a good time. Be responsible.
So, but how did you deliver that message to so many people, not just young black men? Thank you. Okay. Yeah, but you know, I appreciate that, and I do hope people will take this lesson and learn from what Randall was saying. But
can I say one thing?
Yeah, certainly.
If my wife and I had separated, I would have had a vasectomy because I'm not having
more
children in various households. The average man can only take care of one family. So why would you have all of these kids to, like, I don't know, is it an ego trip? I don't get it.
I don't know either. And that's, you bring up a very good point, because there are many men out there who have children from various women. I don't want to bring up pop culture, but we know that Nick Cannon just recently had another baby. You know, I think his 8th, and I don't know how many women. I have no clue how many women.
I mean, he has money.
He has money. He can
supplement.
support all those kids.
It supplements his inability to make good decisions.
Yes. So, but if he didn't have that money, if he wasn't a millionaire, would he have, like you said, used condoms or what have you to not have so many children with different women?
I mean, the thing of it is he doing a pre-test for AIDS? I mean, this is risky for the average guy to just be out here randomly having sex with women. AIDS is still relevant.
Well, not just HIV or AIDS, but there are other STDs
as
well.
Right. But I think about the big one that kills you.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, and I hear you, and so, but most guys are not Nick Cannon. They don't have his money. Then they're never going to have his kind of wealth. Okay. Yeah. But yet, I wonder if there's something more going on with men who choose to continue to have children and not be there for those kids. I mean, like I said, you had the wherewithal to recognize an opportunity and break from the traditional narrative and create your own narrative with your wife. Okay, I wonder if other men don't see that they have other options, that there are other narratives, or that they can create their own narrative. I wonder, do you think that they're not seeing that they have choices, or?
Maybe it is because nobody has guided them. But, you know, I got guidance, like I said, from my stepfather, while observing him as a family man. But I also got guidance from my father who wasn't there.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't going to do to my children what he did to us.
Yeah.
So you know that I spent more time with you consciously than I spent have conscious memory of spending with my father.
No, I didn't know that. I mean, that's pretty profound.
That is really scary, messed up.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. And, my father died when I was 11. And initially, I felt relief because I did not have to worry about being rejected or worrying about ever having to know him.
Yeah.
But when I became a father
Yeah.
and I had a son, I was hurt that he wasn't there to experience it with me.
Wow.
And he had cheated me out of knowing him and being a father to my son, his grandchild.
Did that make you want to be a better father to your son than your father was to you? Or,
Absolutely.
So it was. So you had this consciousness, this self awareness that I want to be different than my father.
Oh yeah, no, I had a conscience. I always thought that I wanted to be, different. I wanted to spend time with my children, nurture them, but I also wanted to be for my wife what my father was not for my mother. And so to leave her with kids in a sort of like an abandonment, and I'm not trying to knock him. He probably had his own demons that I never will know, never will understand that he had to deal with. But see, when I sit down and I hear the brothers knock the female, okay, but what about the child?
Yeah.
Why can't you make a space in your heart to spend time with that child, get to know that child, in spite of the woman, in spite of her? So, so I'm kind of disappointed. What we do, we typically, they go into another relationship with another person and maybe have a kid or maybe not.
Yeah.
And so we need to change that, because I see having my family as a restoration of what we lost from slavery. And I don't want, what I want is, and I'm not into interracial relationships. I want my children to marry African American people or black people, and create black families, and begin to restore what we lost. I don't mean like I take brothers that's not married to black women talk about black problems with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, damn, you're not even trying to do the basics. Is build that black family. It's one black family. There's one black family. There's one. Then it's a city.
Yeah.
Or a neighborhood, and then it's a city.
Yep.
And so forth. So of black people loving black people. I don't mean any harm, but when I first moved in this neighborhood, it was like only 3 whites left. And overall, I've lived in neighborhoods with black folks. I'm going to be honest. It was a refuge from being around white people. And, what it is when you're around working with white people, I don't know, maybe you had a different experience, but there's a weight that is on you with being around them, because you always feel like an outsider, you don't belong. And they let you, and this is why. 1 minute you're working with them inside the office, you walk outside the office, they walk past you and don't acknowledge you. So why the hell do I want to live necessarily with people that are going to be pulling that kind of crap? So I'd rather live in, and I'm not saying that every black person in the neighborhood is going to love me, but most of the neighborhoods that I lived in, black people gave each other the time of day, that look of recognition, like you exist. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, and that's what I, would love to see. Like, I don't have, people talk about gentrification. I don't have a problem with her. I remember black people just walking down the street speaking, all the time when I was younger. So.
And so do you think that's part of what's missing from the black family, the black household, so that it's they're not recognizing some of those things that you're talking about in terms of, like I said, black on black relationships or black neighborhoods that are, I guess, cohesive, if you will. So do you think all that stuff is connected? And like I said, we're in Washington, D.C., which is very, very diverse. This neighborhood is very diverse.
Yeah.
Okay, and you know, and I'm not against diversity. I'm for diversity, but my family is a traditional black family, so and everyone is.
Well, you know what I had with diversity? If you from one of those places, the sundown town, and you come here and you bring the sundown town attitude, and you know that you came to a city with an enormous black population. Even now, looking at the new statistics, we're still 45% of the population.
That's true.
And so you're going to bring that attitude in this place. Why? Or like you brought up with the guy was the people were trying to remove the go-go. Believe it or not, I don't like go-go. Because when I was growing up, all they did was fight at every event. I don't know an event that they didn't fight at. And me and my friends, who are in our 60s now, we made conscious decisions individually and together not to go into that arena because it ended in chaos. And even when my son wanted to be a go-go performer, and he went to an event, and I told him just how it's going to be. You're going to have this moment where everybody is, having a good time. Then they're going to start calling out neighborhoods. Then conflict's going to start. Then fights going to start, and may even be some shooting. Took him to the first go-go event at Bryan Manor. Exactly the same scenario. They came running out the building, but still didn't stop them from wanting to go to.
So just so you all know, here in Washington, D.C., go-go music was created here, and it's a very, very big deal. And there have been issues regarding go-go music being played at events where neighborhoods have gentrified. And so that's what Randall is speaking to. So, I get that, So, again...
I just want to say one thing. The energy of go-go can be very good if it could just keep up the stupidness.
Yeah. So, but before we conclude, though, what would you recommend, or what would you suggest in terms of in general to the black community that you think is needed to, like I said, promote, I guess, black families and black relationships and the black man learning to dismiss the narrative that was probably put out there by the media, but to come up with their own narrative? What would you suggest to everyone out there to come up with their own narrative when it comes to their own lives?
I will tell you this. One time I heard a young lady say, she was a professional black lady, she said, and just passing by, not talking to me, but with 4 girlfriends, and she said, I would never date a working class man. So here you have these, black women who go and they do well and they're excellent and so forth. And, some of them seek relationships outside of the black community as well as they, may not, or they may marry or may not marry. But the thing of it is, it's twofold. The black woman has to be possibly open, and a lot of black women have sacrificed and dated men in with different backgrounds from them. But the black man who's also dating that woman, we could also try hard. You being a plumber, you can make more money than a lot of people in professions.
Plumbers make very good money.
Right. So, the professions that are sitting down, writing and all that. Yeah. So the thing of it is, firstly, we have to look at ourselves as black people and say that what they have put out for us as the way we should live, doesn't work for us because the society has not provided an avenue for us to flourish and reach those goals of the man being in the position of making more money than the woman. And so we have to change that narrative. That man has to be... Go. Yeah, you have to let it go. Oh, and can I add something? Okay, people were talking about the Black Lives Matter people. And the young lady said they have in their constitution or whatever it is, their bylaws, that they wanted to eliminate the quote-unquote nuclear family, right? So I kind of understood what she was saying. See, that's what we kind of eliminated the nuclear family because the idea of the nuclear family is just mother, father, and 1 or 2, 3 kids.
Yeah.
Okay, but because we used to have intergenerational homes in D.C. D.C. almost had like 1 million. They had at least over 900,000, almost a million people in the 50s. And so what you had is multi-generational families, which some people still have, like Spanish people have them, and so forth. And black people have them. Where you're not farming your family off to the old folks' home and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So when she said that, that's clicked. And I said, that's what she means by getting rid of the nuclear family, whereas you could have the grandparent, you could have 3 generations in the household, living in the household, working together. You're getting the same core morals and everything being taught to your kids and so forth. And so that's how I took it. And so this is, and actually, the nuclear family is nothing but a marketing tool. I think it had some roots in marketing, it had some roots in sociology.
Right, it's rooted in capitalism. That's how you get more people to buy more homes and what have you and so forth.
Exactly.
But we won't go there. That's another topic.
I'm not going to go too deep.
Yeah.
But my main point is that these things are just made up. So you actually have the ability
to create your own story.
Create your own story, your own narrative. This is, what God has given us. It's inherent in us to do something different. If they can make up something, you can make up something better.
Yep, and there you have it, folks. So please take to heart to what Randall has said. Like I said, he is a community activist and leader. He's been around for a very long time here in Washington, D.C. Please follow us on Twitter. Also check us out on YouTube. You can also find me on the website, theoffshoot.org. That's www.theoffshoot.org. And please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you again. Take care.